Marvel's firing of James Gunn and him moving over to DC could be a potential game changer. The man has already put in some commendable work for his new employers, and the future now seems brighter for the company than ever before. There is still a long way to go, though, but the big question now is, will James Gunn being fired from Marvel end up saving DC? Keep watching this video to find out what you need to know. James Gunn's unfortunate dismissal from Marvel Studios in 2018 might have been for the best, as it opened the door for him to work at DC and ultimately saved the DCEU. After his time at Marvel came to an end, he moved on to DC, where he created the film Suicide Squad and the TV show Peacemaker for HBO Max. The studio dropped him after Disney rehired him to helm the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. In his exclusive arrangement with Warner Brothers, James Gunn will handle the creative side of DC and serve as the DCEU's version of Kevin Feige, envisioning the future of the company's entertainment franchise. Since its inception with 2013's Man of Steel, the DC Extended Universe has not exactly had a stellar record. Although some of the movies did quite well at the box office, many others were met with disdain from critics and audiences alike. Gunn now has a chance to make the DCEU as successful as its rival, Marvel Studios. Now that James Gunn is in charge of DC Studios' future projects, he can devote more time and energy to improving the studio's weaker stories and characters. Gunn is an expert at building popular names out of previously obscure figures. He has the power to save the DCEU if he takes the successful parts of his films and applies them elsewhere. Characters with significant backstories in both Guardians of the Galaxy and the Suicide Squad were ultimately given fulfillment in their roles, thanks to Gunn's vision, and this has proven that Gunn can develop character arcs farther and make viewers care about them more. The director has the option of creating newer films that feature the introduction of previously unseen characters, or he can shift his attention to telling stories that are more intrinsically linked. Now more than ever, DC can learn from Marvel Studios' success by investing heavily in the long-term vision of their newest creative employee. Why did Disney fire James Gunn? After being buried for more than a decade, several offensive tweets from James Gunn reappeared in the summer of 2018. Many of these tweets were deemed offensive since they were jokes about assault. Disney swiftly made the decision to dismiss him from his role as director of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, which was scheduled for a May 2020 release. However, Gunn's script was still used by Marvel, although his dismissal meant he couldn't direct it. After he was fired, he received an outpouring of support from the film's cast and crew, and the actors from the Guardians of the Galaxy issued a united statement pleading with Disney to bring him back. Many well-known people and news organizations have also come to Gunn's defense. James Gunn's reappointment as director of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 was finally announced in the spring of 2019, but due to Gunn's involvement with the Suicide Squad and the 2020 coronavirus epidemic, the film's release would be delayed for quite some time. Disney expressed appreciation to Gunn for his mature response, and he promptly returned to work on Volume 3 of the series. How James Gunn got involved with DC films. Warner Brothers hired the Guardians of the Galaxy filmmaker just days after Disney fired him to pen the screenplay for the sequel. Gunn was officially announced as the new director of the sequel in early 2019, following the departure of Gavin O'Connor. Thanks to the brutal violence, scatological humor, and pulverizing score of the Suicide Squad, James Gunn was able to fully express himself as writer and director, and since he was allowed unrestricted freedom of expression, he was able to get away with whatever he filmed. Consequently, the DC anti-hero squad thrived as an R-rated story. In order to pass the time during the COVID-19 quarantine, James Gunn penned a spin-off of the Suicide Squad called Peacemaker, in which John Cena would reprise his role. Gunn not only directed 5 of the episodes, but he also wrote all 8. The show didn't premiere until January 2022 on HBO Max after being confirmed in September 2020. Since then, Gunn has been rehired to pen and direct episodes for Season 2. The implications of James Gunn's DC role for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 and the Christmas Special. In addition to his current role as co-head of DC Studios, James Gunn is also working on other upcoming projects for the studio. According to a report from 2022, Gunn is working on a DC project which many have labeled as top secret. In addition, he is serving as executive producer on a spin-off series centered on Amanda Waller. To add to that, he will now serve as co-chairman and co-CEO of all DC television shows and films. While at DC, he has full creative authority over motion pictures, television, and animation, with which allows him to devote his time to critically acclaimed characters like Harley Quinn. As a result of this, he'll be able to bring back some glory to the DC Extended Universe, as he plans to staff it with creatives who are enthusiastic about their jobs. It is important to note that James Gunn needs to split his time between the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the DC Extended Universe. It will be interesting to see how he manages the production of other movies such as Titans, The Batman 2, and Static Shock. Gunn is now in a special position, as he can help deliver the tales that other filmmakers want to make in DC, thanks to his background as a writer and director. But if he is ever going to have a successful career in the DCEU, it has to be as a leader, not just an employee. Thankfully, having an attorney and talent manager with Peter Safran's background is a huge asset to his intuitive and inventive approach. Given Safran's lengthy history of collaboration with DC, it stands to reason that the DC Extended Universe and DC Studios will benefit significantly from this new partnership. What if James Gunn had made The Suicide Squad in 2016? Now that Gunn is with the DCEU, I'm sure many fans are wondering how further up the ladder the company would have been if he had directed the first Suicide Squad film instead of Ayer. Let's not forget that Gunn's 2021 sequel was far superior to Ayer's 2016 effort, and while opinions on the DCEU films as a whole are typically divided, David Ayer's Suicide Squad is largely regarded as the franchise's lowest point. Despite introducing one of the franchise's most popular characters, Harley Quinn, the film was met with great disappointment. Critics pointed to the film's uneven pacing and poorly written ensemble cast as its major problems. However, James Gunn's 2021 Suicide sequel was nonetheless a hit with both reviewers and moviegoers. Gunn's version surprisingly addressed many of the problems of the 2016 film by focusing on new characters and making better use of the ensemble cast was a pleasant surprise. Even though Gunn's picture is a sequel to Ayer's, the two stories are completely unconnected, except for the basic premise, which is also based on the comics. The DC Extended Universe might have looked very different if James Gunn had directed the original Suicide Squad film. His wit and skill as a storyteller would have benefited the DCEU from the start, and his take on the DCEU's anti-heroes and villains would have been a breath of fresh air at a critical juncture. If James Gunn, instead of David Ayer, had directed the first Suicide Squad film, the entire series could have taken a different turn. Gunn would have cast it differently if he directed the first Suicide Squad. James Gunn's approach to casting the Task Force X members in the Suicide Squad would have seen him picking lesser-known villains from DC's roster and figuring out how to adapt them to the film. Choosing lesser-known characters for the 2021 sequel was a bold move, which paid off by giving the DCEU a new and interesting perspective. Gunn's picture relied heavily on the chemistry between its cast of characters, which was made possible in large part by his meticulous assessment of which characters would create the most amusing combination. In contrast, David Ayer's Suicide Squad doesn't have nearly as much chemistry between its characters as Gunn's film does. If Gunn had directed the first Suicide Squad movie, he might have cast more thoughtfully so as to facilitate the best possible team dynamic, hence increasing the film's dramatic and comedic potential. All the same, he's kicked off his stint with the DCEU on a good note, and the company will hope that he can recreate the same magic over and over again. So guys, what do you think the future holds for James Gunn at the DCEU? Let us have your thoughts in the comment section. And if you enjoyed watching this video, kindly like and share it so your friends can watch it too. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell for more awesome videos like this. See you next time.